welcome to everybody. Again, thank you all so much for taking the time, and especially after spring break. Probably wish that the break is a little longer, but it is what it is at this point. So um, at 7:02, we will go ahead and formally get this show on the road. And with that, so it's 2 minutes past the hour. So let's go ahead and get this show on the road. So, good evening to everybody. My name is Eugene Oba. I am the co-founder and vice president of Common Sense Entertainment, a multimedia production company based in DC. I freelance over at Bloomberg, and I am a member of the Journalism Alumni Network's board, which is bringing you this event, Story Power, where entertainment meets journalism. And you guys have just, most of you, some of you, students on this call here tonight, as I had mentioned at the top of this, you guys just ended break. Before the break, we had the Oscars. We had that fun 3 hour show. And there was a whole bit, we had Conan O'Brien hosting and that sort of thing. And I'm sure you watched that stuff on linear TV. But there was a bit in there that I'm sure you saw where Jane Lynch previewed what it could potentially be like when the Oscars moves to YouTube in 2029. And that, along with so many things in the media industry, represents the winds of change that have been blowing, especially, I guess, with the wind that we have here today at the DMV, it is quite fitting. So we're going to look at all of these changes as a bit of a backdrop, as far as how we can navigate this entertainment and journalism industry, whether you want to be inside this industry or if you're somebody that's already in the industry, how you can really pick that back up. And fortunately, we have a lot of great people here that will help get us prepared for this change and how to navigate that so that you are prepared and you can really shine on that red carpet or wherever it is that you meet the celebrities. So, joining us here tonight, our star-studded panel are Maya Green. She is a producer for Good Morning America, class of 2017. Shoshana Medney, class of 2014, a Broadway reporter and content creator. Welcome, welcome. And then we've got Hannah Yasharoff, class of 2019, food, arts, and culture reporter at the Banner Montgomery. Jason Fraley, class of 2008, film and journalism professor at Hood College and host of Beyond the Fame. Great podcast and nice setup you've got there, Jason, by the way, and moderating tonight's event, Kathy Park, as of '07, national correspondent for NBC News. Folks, welcome. So glad to have all of you on. So glad for you all after break to take the time to join us here this evening. We'll get started here on the kind of sort of the meat and potatoes of this. I'll throw to Kathy, our moderator, in just a second. But I do want to remind or let you all know that we will, of course, have a Q&A session at the end of this. This will be within the next hour to 10 minutes, that we will have the Q&A session. So do include your questions in the chat. Include that stuff in the chat function, and we'll have Kathy select some of your best questions, and hopefully we'll get to answer as much as possible. And I will be back with closing remarks, but for all of the questions right now, I hand all of the rest of this program to Kathy.
All right. Thanks, Eugene. Thanks for the enthusiasm. I appreciate being asked to lead this panel. We have pulled together just a great group of voices, and I'm excited to jump right in. But before we do, I think it would be really helpful for all of us logging on tonight to just know a little bit about our panelists. So I guess in no specific order, I am looking at Shoshana right now. She is a bundle of energy. We're disconnecting for the first time tonight, but I can just feel her energy and her excitement. So I'll let her kick things off. And just curious, after you graduated from J school, what happened next? And tell us how you got to where you are today.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you like this. It's really cool, like getting to reconnect with the Maryland alumni and rocking my Maryland flag, or Maryland swag, because when I went to Maryland, I wore a lot of Maryland flag swag. That is true. So, hi everyone, I'm Shoshana, she, her. I run a company called B-Way Show, Broadway Shoshana. So when I was a student at Maryland, I was an intern for WTOP and Comcast Sportsnet. And then I worked for Comcast Sportsnet. Also, hi, Yasharoff. Like, it's so funny because I worked with your dad. And so when I saw your name, I was like, your dad like helped get me to where I am today. So that's just like a fun little side note. So I worked at Comcast Sportsnet. It was amazing. I got to interview like Alex Ovechkin, David Beckham, and I would do like journalism panels when I was a student there. Like, oh, you're the girl that interviewed David Beckham. It was amazing. And then I took my first career switch over to CBS 7, your breaking news and weather authority over in West Texas. So I was doing news and sports there. But as you can tell, I'm a bit theatrical and I love musical theater. And one day I just had an epiphany that I knew how to do all of the aspects of running my own company from a journalism perspective because I was on television every day, everything I learned at Maryland. So I finished my contract over there in West Texas, drove across the country, moved back to New York where I'm from. And now I am a theater journalist and cover the red carpets and do behind the scenes stuff. So it's pretty cool. Like if there's a Broadway musical, there's a good chance I'm on that red carpet and chatting with your favorite stars.
Amazing. I love that. And I think, Shoshana, you're just a perfect example of how nonlinear our path into journalism is. I think
Yeah.
people just kind of bounce around, obviously, across the country for their respective positions. But, when they realize there is a niche that they want to kind of really lean into, I mean, we now have the space for it, right? How about we go to Jason now? I'm curious how you ended up doing, you're a professor, but you're also a podcaster as well. You got the whole setup going on.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. That's a segue. I didn't know you were the previous speaker was at WTOP. I don't know if we crossed paths up, but awesome. That see, we it's perfect segue. No, I love my time at Maryland. Was a print journalism major back then. You had to declare one way or another. So funny enough, I ended up going into radio. But sports reporter, the Diamondback, WMUC, all that stuff. But I shifted into arts and entertainment coverage by taking a bunch of film theory classes. They'd screen the movie down in Susquehanna Hall. Is that what? Yeah, below the South Campus diner. And I just fell in love with the idea of, all the symbolism that Hitchcock or John Ford or Orson Welles were doing in these classes. I probably took like 7 or 8 of them at Maryland, right? So I went on to get my master's in film at AU. And while I was doing that, I became our film critic. I started behind the scenes writing the news, just our news writer at WTOP. I was there 16 years. And then they found out I loved movies and have this little trick where if you say a year, I can tell you what Oscar winner came out. And so our film critic sadly passed away. His name was Joe Barber. Right as I was finishing my master's in film, and they were like, "Hey, let's give the kid a shot." And so I think my first review was The Artist. It was a silent movie for the radio. I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah, it turned into a full-time entertainment reporter. Again, yeah, I was there 16 years. And I covered the Oscars twice, flew out there, including the La La Land Moonlight craziness backstage. That was insane. And yeah, and you mentioned the podcast. So basically on WTOP, you get, 40 seconds on the radio between traffic and weather. It's really quick hit. But I'd have, an hour of tape with, Carol Burnett, Bob Newhart, William Friedkin, all these big names. And when podcasting came out and became big, I decided that's perfect, the place to upload the full episodes. You could hear all, this treasure trove of interviews with Spielberg and Tom Hanks and whoever. And so finally, Lin-Manuel Miranda. And so I launched the podcast. It's still on WTOP.com, but right now, as of like 2 years ago, I own the full rights, and I'm just keeping it going as a professor up here at Hood College, where I teach film and journalism. And so it's bringing back the old interviews that I had. It's like 1,000 episodes, and then also still booking new guests whenever someone comes to town. So this week is Jay Leno. It's always fun.
Amazing. Wear a
Yeah.
lot of hats.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hannah, let's go to you. You're the food, arts, and culture reporter for the Banner Montgomery, and I grew up in MoCo, so I'm excited to hear your path.
I love it. I also grew up in MoCo, so it's fun to be back here covering this community. My name is Hannah Yasharoff. As you said, I'm a food, arts, and culture reporter for the Banner, but I've spent most of my career covering entertainment on a national level. So at Maryland, I actually originally thought I also wanted to go into sports journalism. Interesting through line here.
There you go.
Worked at the Povich Center for a few years and then realized that the way my sports friends talked about sports was the way I talked about entertainment. So started to go down that avenue. And then the summer before my senior year, I reached out to, actually, no, before that, sorry, but I reached out to a former classmate, Anika Reed, who was working at USA Today, and asked if she might be able to help me get in touch with their entertainment team for an internship. And she did, she helped, and then later became my boss, which was a really fun through line. But I spent senior year interning on the entertainment team, covering everything from celebrities to movies to books to music, and then was able to finesse my way into a job after graduating. I was the first person to log on in the morning. I started at 5 a.m. Covering whatever news broke overnight in the entertainment world. So a lot of times that was obits or celebrities getting married. I think my first shift was Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner had gotten married like overnight in Vegas. And so I had to track down those records, and that was a fun first day on the job. But yeah, that really gave me a good sense of how the industry worked, all of the different journalism aspects that you need to be an entertainment reporter. I later covered more, feature stories within the entertainment industry, spent some time covering wellness, then left USA Today to join The Messenger, which was a news startup that crashed and burned very suddenly, but was a great learning experience to be a part of. And then spent the next few years as a freelancer covering entertainment, wellness, lifestyle, food, for USA Today again, also Pop Sugar, Well and Good, National Geographic, Eater, which I will get into more tonight, but I think everyone needs to have a basic understanding of how freelancing works, because I did not, and that was a very sudden pivot to have to make. But about 4 months ago, I joined the Banner to cover entertainment and food on a local level, but also bringing a lot of my national expertise. So we just obviously wrapped up award season, and I did a lot of focus on the Montgomery County folks and Maryland folks at large that were a part of award season, which we had a good amount of. So that was fun.
Awesome. Excellent. And you bring up a good point about freelancing, because I feel like journalists who have been doing this for years are having to make that pivot into that freelancing market. So we'll bring that up later on tonight. And then lastly, Maya Green, who is a producer at GMA, The Competition.
Yes, 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 yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Maya. I am, as she said, a producer at Good Morning America, specifically Team Robin at Good Morning America. When I was at University of Maryland, I did the Viewfinder capstone, which, as we know, is very focused on character-driven stories. And that was the hope as I moved into, starting my career. When I finished school, I did not have a job. I didn't have an internship. I didn't have anything. And me and my friend, I was like, come over, I'll get some wine. We'll apply to jobs. And so I do not remember applying to my job or my internship with ABC News. So I was shocked when they called. But I said something. I think I called myself Scrappy. And for some reason, the man that was interviewing me, my boss Dennis, was very taken by that. And Scrappy I have been ever since. So I've been I started out as an intern, and then they actually ended my internship early and made me a PA. And I got to work on the local news side. I got to work, excuse me, at the desk on social, really all around the bureau. But I wanted to expand the coverage. I just the politics just was getting to me, and I wanted to do more entertainment. I wanted to do everything under the sun. So I applied to a job at GMA in New York and was able to land that as well. I came in as a PA doing weekend overnights. Yes, I said weekend overnights. And that turned into becoming an AP, still on weekend overnights for a little while, but then that just turned into regular overnights. And then I got pulled into Team Robin. And I had started off as her producer. So I was with her in the mornings, making sure we were going through her editorial, making sure everything was correct, cutting pieces for her. And now I'm no longer with her in the morning. So she gets up at, the crack of dawn without me, but I still produce pieces for her team and for the show at large, entertainment, sports, everything under the sun we do. So yeah, that's how it all happened.
Amazing. I just love everyone's stories and just kind of where the turns are throughout your careers. And, it is important to be scrappy to kind of get the attention, right? And yes, I think we've all worked either overnights, weekends, or weekend overnights. And sometimes I still get pulled into working weekends and we're still working holidays. So the beauty of being a journalist. All right. Well, I loved hearing everyone's backgrounds, but kind of let's dive a little bit deeper into our conversation. And obviously, our theme is more entertainment driven. Everyone seems to kind of hit that market at some point in their careers. But I want to start maybe 30,000 feet in the air a little bit. Talk about just viewer reader behavior. Years ago, I feel like I'm ancient with this panel, but I was a big entertainment junkie. I would read People Mag. I would watch Entertainment Tonight. And unfortunately, Access Hollywood, the headline broke not too long ago that they're going to be closing up shop later on this summer. But where are folks consuming their entertainment news now? And maybe Jason, maybe you can kind of start things off because you've kind of seen that wave and you're a professor now. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
your students, where are they getting their news? Is it TikTok, social?
You wouldn't believe it. Hurts my soul when I say, have you heard of this reference or have you seen this movie? And they're like, have no, just blank stares. Like one of them had seen The Wire, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, yes, we have different touchstones, and it's not that long ago in the grand scheme of things, but to them it is. It's ancient history to them. But yeah, I think COVID, it was like a 1-2 punch. It was the technology was already going that way, and then COVID came and just it knocked Hollywood and journalism and a bunch all in their butts all at the same time. The technology to stream things at home was already starting to be there, but then COVID conditioned all of us to not go out to crowded spaces, and then at the same time, you had Disney Plus and all them starting to we all have way too many streaming subscriptions now. Which one do I cancel? Cut the cord or what? Disney Plus started releasing, I think Encanto might have been the first one. They released the same day and date, as the theaters. So we're kind of, and now I'm hoping we're going to hopefully come back, but Sinners and some other blockbusters doing well at the Oscars hopefully could be a sign. But yeah, in terms of journalism, it's a time of everyone needing to reinvent themselves. Like my students, they're either if they see a clip on social media, or if some of them didn't watch the Oscars but they saw the Michael B. Jordan clip on on TikTok or Instagram, right? So it's more fragmented like that. They don't watch late night TV anymore. They just look for the clips the next day, the talk shit. So yeah, but in terms of our journalists, it's just I know we have some alumni on here and some that are students, right? So for the students, I want to say I still think it's a noble profession. Go for it, right? But for those of us that are alumni and veterans in this, I also want to be clear-eyed and realistic. Like it's a scary time out there right now. I mean, the Washington Post just got rid of its sports section. I was part of the 2024 round of layoffs at WTOP. They basically eliminated the entertainment vertical. I mean, they still have freelancers covering stuff, or some people write stuff for free and stuff. But for the most part, it's no longer a full-time gig there. The Washington Post also got rid of its book critic and its movie critics, and so I mean, everyone here can probably agree it's an interesting time to try to be breaking into the industry. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for me, and even the Kennedy Center's closing. So even all the red carpets we used to go cover, hopefully you still have them up in Broadway and Hollywood. But yeah, it's just like everything seems topsy-turvy right now. So you just try to, I go on Arch Campbell's podcast. He started JLA, put me on TV. I'll do a free live hit on NBC to recap the Oscars, but it's free. Go on Tony Kornheiser's show to preview the Oscars, but it's free. And Tony couldn't believe the whole YouTube thing. If it's not on network TV, what's going to happen? So anyway, I feel like it's a lot of free gig work, and teaching and cobbling together is kind of, I don't know, I would love to hear everybody else, but are you all sort of in cobble mode?
Maybe Hannah, you want to take that? You mentioned freelancing, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned all the different outlets that you have contributed to. So how did that all come into play? And how do you, to put it bluntly, make a living doing this?
Yeah, I definitely have experience being in cobble mode. The my situation was interesting because with the Messenger, we kind of had no warning that it was ending. So I sort of just very suddenly had to, figure out what was going on. But I think the biggest thing for me was leaning on the context that I had. I was going through trying to look at all the places that I freelanced when I was doing it full time. And I think with the exception of one or two outlets, all of them were places where I either knew someone who was an editor there or knew someone who was an editor there. There are a lot of folks trying to freelance right now because obviously the job market is difficult. And editors, frankly, their inboxes are just flooded with pitches. And so being able to rely on, folks who can get you in the door, I think is really huge. And then on the financial side, it was difficult. I will not sugarcoat that. I was very grateful to have a few years of savings to be able to lean back on, because the first year, I would say, I was not making enough to survive without savings. So that is another thing to think about. There are certain outlets that pay very, very well, like places like AARP and National Geographic still pay $800 for a feature story. And then there are other places that pay $100 for a feature story. And so it really is sort of a puzzle of trying to find enough places where you're writing what you love and writing stories that you're passionate about, but also making sure that you are, doing enough work to pay the bills.
Shoshana, I want to jump over to you because you talked about going into the traditional media space. You did local news, and then you transitioned. Now you're a content creator, and you're doing quite well. Talk to me about that as far as just the loyalty among viewers. Is it media outlets versus influencers? I mean, does it seem like influencers are kind of edging out at this point?
It's such a fascinating topic. So when we were talking about this before, as I was like, oh, this is exactly my niche, because when I started B-Way Show, a lot of people would just instantly call me an influencer. And I was like, actually, I went to journalism school and I was on live television. And I used to be really offended by that. And it took a couple of years to finally be like, it doesn't matter what it's called. So now I lean into it with independent journalist and content creator. But for the first few years, I think people didn't realize that I was coming from this journalism background and thought that I was just because I have a very bubbly personality and I'm very colorful. So people thought that I was just picking up a mic and going to do interviews, which is true, but with all the background knowledge and having done all these interviews for years and years. And I actually get a lot of students, both high school students, college students reaching out to me and being I want your job. How do you do it? And the answer is my specific path is how I was able to be where I am today. Like if I didn't go to CBS 7 and if I didn't intern at WTOP and Comcast Sportsnet, there's no chance that I would be able to do what I'm doing at the level I'm doing it. It's weird because it's like I don't want to be like, look at what I did. But like
Yeah.
I've put in my 10,000 hours
Yeah.
over and over again. Like at CBS 7, like I was doing news and sports. I was working double shifts to do the like news reporting for like breaking news, kind of like what other people have been talking about. Like you get a call at 6 a.m. on a Sunday, you are expected to be at that breaking news site within a half hour. It's just like, it's a very different lifestyle. You have to be like always on. It was like, I remember I would be Friday, I'd be doing like a full news report. I'd go out, do interviews, put together a package, and then do my like extra hours overtime to do the game of the week football because that sports is what I really wanted to do. And there's this like culture in journalism that like if you want it hard enough, you will do it. And I think that's maybe the biggest difference with like influencer culture is like I have so many influencer friends who are like pure influencers. So I very much want to be like careful how I'm saying it. But like there's a different drive, maybe a different, like, we had to put in so much work at Maryland, even to just graduate with a journalism degree, even to graduate from, was it like 201? Like, I took a class like second semester freshman year. That's usually for sophomores, but like, I wanted to fast track it. I also see Sue here. Hello. Like, love our Maryland journalism squad. 201 Indeed. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? I mean, I like really take pride in my Maryland education, and like the fact that I was live on television, you just have to like figure out what to do. You just have to like learn how to do it. And it was kind of cool being like a local celebrity. Like I remember going to get groceries and people were like, aren't you on TV? It's like, yes, hello, that's me. And I'd get like free invites to like the Odessa Jackalopes games, which by the way, Connor Story, who's like heating up with Heated Rivalry, is from Odessa, Texas, which is where I spent 2 years as an on-air reporter. And let me tell you, that feels like my life just like put into one. Like I was destined to be a reporter in Odessa, Texas for 2 years so that one day I get to interview Connor Story. And I just like, I know we're going to have a great little report because it's so niche. I think I went like all around, but the specific answer is like, the world is wide enough in our Hamilton reference, right? But I think it's important to know which path you want to do. So I started B-Way Show in 2019, and the way that I'm looking at what I do now versus what I did back then, and like my influence and like how I want to be interviewing people. Like back then I was doing more like games and trying to see like how can I get more views and stuff. And now I'm like, actually, I just like want to be a journalist and asking real questions. And sometimes we'll giggle and goof because it's Broadway or off Broadway and we're just having a good time. But I'm still going into it with like real questions and like real research ahead of time so that by the time we're there and we're having so much fun, we can then also like lean into the giggles versus that being like the clickbait of it all. Like I'm so tired of that. And I am like very much anti just trying to get the clickbait. I'm like, actually, what about the content?
Right. I'm going to bring in Maya into the mix. Maya, I think you and I kind of fit into this traditional media bucket working at
Yeah.
the network level. But from my experience being at NBC for the past 8 years, I mean, I've noticed a big shift in maybe the past like 3 years. A lot of social viral videos drive the day. It's in
Yeah.
rundown. We have influencers who are come onto the show pretty regularly.
Regulars.
And
Yep.
so I'm
Yep. Yep.
I'm
Yep.
curious, what's happening over at GMA, and also, we are trying to evolve as well as a network and
Mhm.
really leaning into digital, and trying to break into that space and carry that audience and perhaps bring them back to the traditional network side of things. So I'm curious what's happening over at ABC.
Yeah, there's definitely a push and pull happening. I think the great thing is that there is space for all of it. And to your point about us evolving as well, we're definitely taking pages out of influencers' books, things that stick, things that resonate. I see us kind of trying to model, like if there's a trend, we'll do it with our anchors. Or if we see something that's really popular, we'll find a way to make it GMA. So I think that it's like as much space in the ecosystem that we take up. I think we also are watching what's happening online organically and trying to figure out how we can fit into that as well. Because if you don't evolve, then we all know what happens. So I've definitely seen that push and pull happening.
And just kind of staying with, I think influencers, it's just a hot topic. I mean, it's taken over. There's no hiding the truth about that. Would you say, and this is just kind of opening up to the floor, are companies, would you say, are they prioritizing personality over journalistic skill?
I think one of the really interesting things we've been seeing on red carpets lately is, news outlets bringing in influencers as red carpet personalities. And I think one really interesting example of that was Jake Shane, who is an influencer who I like to follow and I listen to his podcast.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
We have to talk about it. But he sort of caught some flack last week for being a little bit too casual with some of the folks he was interviewing, not quite knowing, how serious some of the projects were, that sort of thing. And it was sort of, I have to say, heartening to see a lot of comments like on TikTok of people being like, bring back journalists to red carpets. So there is, even amongst the TikTok crowd, there are people who see value in people who are, experts in this industry asking questions, as opposed to, folks who might bring in viewers, but then not actually give the viewers the substance they want, which I think is sort of an ongoing issue with some entertainment coverage. But I think as a whole, when it comes to influencers, there are influencers who succeed long term because they are about building community and about, actually getting to know their followers. And then there are other influencers who are sort of a little bit more about their own lifestyles. And I think those tend to be a little bit more of a flash in a pan situation. But I think there's room for both.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Hannah, because the two times I went out and covered the red carpet, I was so excited. I knew all their filmographies. I was so excited to ask these like actual filmmaking questions, like, what was the mise en scène of this shot angle? You know what I mean? Like I was geeking out. And then I was amazed how many people next to me on the red carpet hadn't seen the actual movie, like this year's nominees that they were there covering. And I could see maybe if it was like, live action short or something and they hadn't gotten to it or whatever. But it was like the main like acting nominees. And it was kind of very eye-opening and disheartening how many, like it kind of speaks to today's influencer cult. And this was 10 years ago, so I'm sure it's even more now. Just how much this sort of superficial influencer culture is out there. It was more about like who's wearing what, which I know that's its own. There's some people are into that, or the TMZ tabloidy stuff of who's dating who, and sort of the celebrity pizzazz stuff where So I don't know. I think it's important to kind of do what is it Shoshana? Is that your name? Mm-hmm. Yes. To put in the 10,000 hours, like you said, so the history of what you're doing. Everyone here in this room, I'm sure, is that way in the room where it happens.
Getting the
second hand was a reference for the day. But know your stuff, have your blueprint, have the knowledge base, and then if you can learn from the influencers in terms of this is how to stack your make your Instagram reels, and you collaborate with the right people. Learn from them, learn the on-screen, the flashy, charismatic persona, but have the knowledge base. I wish there was a way to have both, because when everyone can be a critic, it's great, it democratizes it, but then no one's really a critic. Everyone can have a YouTube channel reviewing movies, but they, haven't seen anything past the day they were born. So anyway, I think anyone listening, I would try to do both. Do your 10,000 hours and research your subject so you know it in here, and then hone your personality on camera.
Yeah. Do you mind if I pop off of that?
Go for
it.
Yep,
pop away.
Pop away.
But I'm thinking a lot about when I've covered the Tony Awards, and I cover Broadway and off Broadway and off Broadway on like a daily basis, right? Like, so I know the actors, writers, producers, lighting designer, costume designer, like every single element of it. And exactly what you're talking about. Like, I remember, obviously, even as an independent journalist who's been doing this for years, sometimes if like ABC News wants to cover an event and there's only so many slots, like I get kicked out. It makes sense. I'm not so bitter anymore, just like a little bit. But like, you know, I still have to like fight for it. And I think because I am still seen as this like I've heard from a lot of people that they're like, we don't know what to call you or what to like where to put you because you're not really just an influencer, you're not like traditional media. I'm like, right, because I'm doing my own thing, but like I'm consistent. I show up, I do it every day. And I just remember being in the like media room for the Tony Awards a few years ago. And like, you know, someone has just won their first Tony Award. It is so exciting. And it is the lighting designer. And the person from People who I love and they are great, like doesn't know who they are, right? They are waiting for the big celebrities to come up. So they're going around with the microphone and I'm like, okay, I've got a question like, hey, how is doing this show like impacting this? So I go through I'm helping out, basically asking questions to like every single person who comes up. Then Daniel Radcliffe wins a Tony Award. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I played Quidditch at Maryland. Like, I am going to ask Daniel Radcliffe a question. And one of the people who was like moderating was like, well, you've asked so many questions already. And I was like, well, hold on there. I've been helping you out and making sure that like the people who just won don't not get a question. Like I would wait a second or two to make sure like, oh, no one has a question. I'm going to ask them a question. And so I think this is where like journalism versus like influencer training really helped me because I was like giving them specific reasons of like, I have a real question for Daniel Radcliffe. I've interviewed him like before. I've covered his career. Like I will be asking him a question basically. And it's been hard to sometimes like speak up for myself in these like big communities, these big things, but like all the years of like being the only woman in the room, like when I was at WTOP and Comcast Sportsnet, like half of those locker rooms, I was the only woman, the only one under 20. Like you learn how to be like, I will be getting this question. That is like journalism 101 of like, I need to get this answer. And so when I finally did get to ask Daniel a question and he was like, oh, that's a really good question. I was like, see? And I was really proud of it. And I think it's just like a really key example of like people were asking him about Harry Potter like that night. They were like asking him. And I was like, he just won a Tony Award for a Stephen Sondheim musical. How are you not going to like ask him about Sondheim or like the friendships he's made along the way in Maryland? Like there were just so many questions. And that was such a key moment for me of like, oh, like people who don't cover Broadway don't realize like how big of a deal this musical, this moment was. And I was really proud of myself for like making sure to get my question and also being like, it's important to cover the day to day and know all of the people.
You knew where the history met the moment, so you knew what it meant. And Daniel's tired of answering Harry Potter questions.
Yeah.
And then you got the handlers being the sorting hat, like, oh, you're an influencer. Where to put you? Where to put
exactly. You? It's been a crazy journey, but I'm really proud of like what's happening now.
That's awesome.
It seems like go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, Shoshana, I think the really cool thing about what you're doing is that because you've built this audience that is so niche, like you get to ask the really in the weeds questions. Like as you were talking, I was thinking to myself and I was like, if I was with USA Today and I was there, I would have to ask about Harry Potter because that's what people are going to click on. Like, you know, more general audiences unfortunately are not interested in his Tony, even though I am. And so that is a really, I think, cool space to be in where you can, you know, ask the questions that the people who are actually interested in it want to know, as opposed to, you know, what Google News is going to pick up the next day or what the majority of people are going to click on.
For saying that. I'm also wondering with like Good Morning America, because we do sometimes like, you know, whenever there's a Good Morning America musical segment, like I know my whole community is like, let's go. And even for Ragtime, like I was in the audience this year when they were filming. And I was like, oh, this is so cool to see how that goes through. So what's that like for you? Sorry to take over your
No.
You get a journalist on a panel, she's gonna ask a question.
No, I think that our ties to Broadway we've strengthened them over the years, and it's a super important, especially we're not in Times Square anymore, but being right next to it. And I also think to the point that you just made, Hannah, like even though I work for a national broadcast, I have found that the stories that resonate the most are often ones that highlight communities. Like, so to the point that, you guys are making, I think it's even the themes of a story are more important than how widespread it is, because people can attach themselves to a theme or a feeling or a sense of something, beyond just what the actual or who's involved in the story, or it just, I found that those are the stories that really, really take fire online for us, especially things that just have universal themes.
I'm curious, with social media just being the go-to for so many people, right? When it comes to news and entertainment, and our attention span is shrinking by the minute. For folks who are pumping out content, I think most of you guys are on this panel. How do you balance and how do you strike that balance between speed, volume, versus quality, because you still want to stay relevant. And is it every week, every day? I'm just kind of curious what your workflow looks like on a regular basis. Maybe Jason, start with you.
Yeah, it is. I'm always keeping an eye on and an ear out during the interview. Oh, will this be good for social media? But I don't like previous speakers were saying, you don't I don't lead with that necessarily, because then it becomes a very superficial thing. I think that you sit down like you were in the J201 class, when they would fail you for one typo, or you didn't ask, oh, is it John Smith spelled the usual way? Oh, Smyth F on your paper. So yeah, so you bring the credibility, you bring the actual questions, approach it like it's an actual, a legit long form interview. And thankfully, podcasting has allowed to, it's a longer interview. So yeah, I think that's to answer your question. The actual question is, I try to do the volume of it. I try to do a longer length interview and get all of it, and then I go back and try to figure out, okay, what were some of the big, as you play it back, what were some of the big moments that would make good for a social media reel or a YouTube clip or whatever. I'm sure the rest of you do the same thing, but yeah, you'll just be like, oh well, the Jay Leno said this about, oh, the Cole Koenig controversy. Mental note, I'm going to go back to that, and then you cut it. I just, I throw it into a video editing software. You can use Premiere, or hell, you could even use iMovie if you wanted. But just and I stack them in CapCut, and yeah, and there's tons of different apps you can do to create your social media content. My wife does it for a living, so she gave me some tips. But yeah, you just create. It's weird. You wake up in the morning and you're, oh, okay, I got to share it across 5 different platforms, but it's different because horizontal works better on YouTube, and then stack works better on Instagram, and this is a story and it's going to disappear. It's insane how many hats we all have to wear now nowadays. But I think, yeah, it's get the long interview and then snip it down.
Yeah, I would say the same. We often will shoot, depending on who the subject is, 20 to 45 minutes. And then we typically, before we break down all the equipment, we have in our head what the two social slots are going to be. Sometimes we give them to World News to kind of push to the interview the next day. We did a story, I don't know if you guys remember, Risa Tisa. She was super uber viral on TikTok some years ago, and we did a sit down interview with her. And so, as a teaser for the interview, she had done a 50-part series. She said part 51 of who the F did I marry? And then we kind of had Robin walk in, and that kind of teased the interview. So that was a very like viral like thing, but it was, to try and get eyeballs. So it just depends on who the subject is, what the medium is, because we do long form stuff now. Things will live on ABC News Live, they'll live on Hulu. So it just depends. But to your point, like the longer interview and then making those hard decisions about what stays, what goes on the cutting room floor, and just trying to make it as good as it can be in the time frame given.
Yeah. I've had a wild journey with the like do I use my professional camera equipment, which I spent a lot of money on and am proud that I know how to use it and it looks great? Or do I use my iPhone because I can get it up faster and it feels more organic? And actually, for a while, my TikTok kept flagging anytime I would post a video of me on a red carpet with my professional camera, thinking that like I was taking it from someone. And I always would like be like, I'm the pink hair girl, like that is me. And I like my TikTok got like disbanded for like a few years, honestly. So it's been a really hard process of like having to shift. Like I used to always film everything 16:9. And now I film most things 9:16, and it like kind of breaks my heart. But like I just learned that you have to adapt. And so I have my whole camera set up because eventually, if I can get more funding, and hello out there, if anyone wants to give funding, we would love that. But I would love to do like live red carpet coverage, like on my nice, like having the camera set up and then also live to YouTube. And I've done that a few times, but it is hard to like both be the on-air talent and the producer and the videographer and the editor. And that is like my biggest struggle right now. And if I'm just going to be like real honest with everyone, because I think this is a big like heart of what we want to get into, is like I've been thinking a lot about like what is success, because I feel pretty successful in what I'm doing. I've built great relationships with everyone. I like, Josh Groban will stop for me for an interview, but doesn't stop for someone else. Like that to me feels like success. And I have a lot of fun. And Jordan Fisher like complimented me at the Wicked for Good premiere to his wife. And I was like, what? Like, I feel like that is success, but it's also like a struggle sometimes to pay rent. And it is a struggle to like, if I could have a full-time videographer and editor and I could focus on like being the reporter and like focusing on the social media content, like it is really hard to both do the individual social media content that's day to day that will get me clicks and keep me engaged in the community, but also like ideally I want it to be like a long YouTube podcast form, but that takes a lot of time and energy, and doesn't always like get those clicks, at least not right away. And so like my like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok all do a lot better with like short form, but I like long for the long form. So that is something that like anyone in the audience who wants to like chat would love to, but that is like my next level dream. Hey, we got to pitch ourselves, you gotta do that. But like I love what I'm doing, right? Like I feel like it is so rare to find a niche and something that you're passionate about, that you're good at, and that you've like trained your whole career for. And I have found that. And it's like the next step is how do we monetize it properly?
And Shoshana, just to be clear, you're still a one-woman show. You don't
I am
have
a
like
one-woman
okay.
show.
Okay, gotcha.
And like I will say, like I get by with a little help from my friends, right? Like I've built up this like super army of like friends that I've trained how to like video for me, and so they will join me on a red carpet and like video for me, and it is amazing. And then I will like, because I get a +1 for a musical. So it's like a pretty good deal right now for them, like, and they get to be in the room where it happens. I really do love Hamilton, just in case if you were wondering about all those little references. But yeah, it is like, I am the only, like, B-Way show is show. It is me. Hello.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. And we all kind of watched the transition happen on red carpets for years. So it'd be down there covering the Kennedy Center Honors or Mark Twain Prize every year. And just like you were saying, it was well, the camera crews from the ABC, NBC, local channels would have the tripod and the camera, and the guest would get to the host would get to focus on answering the question. I'm Kid O'Shea at WJI. I'm Tommy McFly. I'm Kevin McCarthy, who, by the way, great podcast. He's transitioned really well, Kevin at Fox. But anyway, they had the tripod. But then I'm sitting there at WTOP. First of all, we're down a little further down Country Radio, and then further down would be the influencers, I guess, fighting for lights to even be in your shot. And then you have your camera, your one-man band, and you're asking the questions, and you're trying to keep it framed, but it's. So I kind of agree with you. I kind of watch different people around me start to do not the selfie stick. What do they call it? The stick, the tribe stick pod. On iPhones, and as the technology got better and better, the cameras got better and better. I see no reason why, if you're anyone listening here, you couldn't go cover a red carpet with an iPhone. The cameras are amazing now. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I mean, Sean Baker shot his movies, the one that won an Nora last year. He shot a lot of his movies on iPhone. Tangerine and stuff. So I actually would recommend it because you're fighting for space anyway there to ask your question. So I would I would go for it.
Yeah, and on the news level, you'd be shocked to know a lot of things are being shot on iPhone as well. So
Yes.
for better or for worse, I mean, in
Yes.
breaking news situations, it's right there, it's immediate. I mean, we can go live if need be, but technology has advanced and improved, and it's at that level where the viewer might not know the difference between a camera and a cell phone these days.
You
Um,
can upload it straight. You could take it and upload it straight to whatever platform. You know what I mean? Oh, we're live on the red carpet, and instead of having to take the SD card out or in the old days a tape out, so it's actually faster. I would recommend it.
Yeah, it's instant. You guys have been talking about the red carpet, and I think Eugene kind of kicked things off earlier tonight, just talking about the Oscars. A big headline is that the iconic show, will be moving to YouTube in 2029. Access Hollywood is wrapping up, and there's a possibility maybe they'll be moving to digital. So I guess the big question is this part of a bigger movement? Or things just moving to digital? Is that the future? And if so, how do you guys kind of target your careers knowing that this is where we're headed? Hannah?
It's interesting because I think, from a coverage standpoint, it doesn't really change that much for me. Like when I'm recapping award shows from my couch, judging other people's outfits while I'm wearing my pajamas, like I'm watching Hulu live TV. And so that's not really that big of a jump to me, but I am curious from like a consumer standpoint. I've covered a lot of Dancing with the Stars, and a few years ago they tried to make the jump to only be streaming on Disney Plus. Like it was live, but it was only on Disney Plus. And the uproar was so overwhelming that they had to go back to being live on ABC. I think probably people like my grandma who loved the show and couldn't figure out how to find it. So I'm curious how this shift will move, but I do think it is just indicative of the way the streaming industry is working, and the fact that, when you're covering entertainment, you need to have a good understanding of the business side of that and how all that's working.
Maya, I'm curious on the TV side of things. Is this a conversation that comes up often?
It is. We have a lot of conversations about linear versus digital and where things are headed. And I think that what they're really preaching is that we think of TV as less of a device and more of just a format. And there are so many different ways you can engage with it. I'm very curious about how many folks, because I know I watch YouTube on my TV. I know a lot of people watch it on their laptop, but with these new apps and these smart TVs, it's very easy to just pull up YouTube. So it's kind of like the same thing, but not really. It's an interesting dance that we're doing with all of these streaming platforms, and it definitely is, encouraged for us to be thinking about multi-platform content all the time, not just the things that live on the linear TV, but how things live on TikTok, how things live on YouTube. For example, we started doing extended cuts of our interviews and putting them on YouTube, and they've been doing crazy numbers. So I understand the move in some regard because that is where the eyeballs are, but it definitely does beg the question, what else is going to move?
Yeah. Yeah. I think YouTube is all well said by everybody. I think YouTube is sort of where the action is now. And even, I mean, I think I mentioned earlier that during the Oscar thing with Tony Kornheiser, who I don't know, he's maybe in his 70s probably. PTI, ESPN, everybody, former Washington Post. He just couldn't believe it was going to YouTube. Yeah, what are we gonna do? All of us with the, we used to watching it on ABC. And but I pointed out, like, my father-in-law, he's 70s as well, he watches YouTube all the time to, Mr. Fix It, this old house, like, oh, how do I fix this? I'm gonna pull up YouTube, and they have it on their TV. So, I think maybe it's just us training our parents and grandparents to, how to get the apps to show up on their smart TVs, or but yeah, I really think at least with the Oscars, I think the demise of the Oscars is a little I think there's always these think pieces. Oh, the viewership dropped so far, but I honestly, if you come, it's still the most watched like non-sport. NFL dominates everything, but it's the most Oscars is the most watched non-sports or non-news thing every year. So I always tell people when they're like, "Oh, Hollywood is not what it used to be. That's why the Oscars are tanking." Well, it's like actually, it's kind of across the board. You're not gonna have MASH or Seinfeld or even Friends numbers anymore. Like even I tell people I'm like, what's your favorite show? Oh, Game of Thrones. Okay, well the Oscars demolished that in the rating. So because everyone's splintered. So even the big pop culture things nowadays don't get the same numbers as just the Oscars.
I,
Yes, it's very far down from when Titanic, the high water mark. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Oscars are gonna be okay. I think people can figure out how to use YouTube by 2029. I hope.
I think that right now I've been having this really fascinating look into heated rivalry. I don't know who else is like in the heated rivalry craze of it all, but it is like kind of changing the game of pop culture. And like even my friends and I were like, oh, maybe we want to get magazines. I've not wanted to like get a magazine in print in a while, if I'm just going to be honest. And then I saw that Hudson and Connor were doing these like spreads and doing interviews that you could only see via the magazine. And I went to Barnes and Noble and they were all sold out. And there were 5 other people behind me looking to get those magazines. So I think that like, if you're talking about the numbers of like Friends and Seinfeld, like it is insane. I would love to actually see the numbers of heated rivalry because people are watching this and rewatching it in a way that I've never seen before. Like my threads is all just like heated rivalry and Hudson and Connor. Like that was crazy. And then when I got to interview Ksenia, who's one of the actors in the show who plays Svetlana, like the numbers on that interview are doing super well. And I'm like, oh, let me do some like break off interviews from like our 4-minute interview. And I've posted like a few clips and people are really interested in all of that. And that's like, I think I've gone beyond just like Broadway because I'm like, you know what? I'm a human too. I have interests beyond theater and anything kind of within the culture platform feels like fair game for me. And it is amazing to see like when Connor Story hosted SNL, like all of my content with that did extremely well. Like I was putting together like all of the surprise appearances and I put that all into one video and it got like 80,000 overnight, right? Like people are like hooked in on them. Unlike anything I've seen really in our generation, like of the star power that of the last like 5 months to go from like unknowns, not knowing heated rivalry, not knowing these 2 actors, and now they are being invited to like the Oscars, to the Vanity Fair after party, like hosting at the Golden Globes, like being at the Olympics. I actually hosted, hold on, this is hilarious. So here's a photo of them. I hosted a heated rivalry Purim party, which was baller, I must say. And can you believe that 2 actors who were in a show then got to like carry the Olympic flames? Like that is next level. And all these websites, like these big sources, are all putting Hudson and Connor as like their first thing, and then Zendaya next, and then like Tom Holland. Like it is, I've never seen 2 actors blow up the way that they have. So it's been really fun to like follow that journey along.
You know, since we are kind of at this crossroads, right, in this industry, and we have a lot of students, perhaps mid-career journalists, who are listening right now, I would love to kind of ask each of you guys, what can they do to stay relevant in this evolving landscape?
I think one of the biggest game changers for me, I come from a writing background. I think we were all at Maryland where you chose one track or the other, and I chose multi-platform, which was writing focused. But the biggest game changer was becoming comfortable speaking on camera. I thought I was just a writer, and now my job involves me talking, making videos every week, making, news appearances, radio appearances. So being able to do it all, which is something we've been talking a lot about tonight, I think is really vital and not something that, if you are mid-career, you necessarily got from a journalism education, but is something that you sort of need to be able to pivot right now.
Yeah. I'd say 2 things. Don't go into debt doing it. So work a job while you're in school because student loans are insanity. And number 2, yeah, do the 10,000 hours. learn your subject that you care about, and that could just be, if you're a movie fan, then watch all the great, print off the list of the greatest movie, watch them, and take notes and start a blog. That's what I did. Or if you're into music or Broadway, like other people, listen, start your own blog and build up a bit of a brand just on your own before you even get your foot in the door somewhere else. Do a ton of internships. Even at Maryland, I did the Frederick News Post, Baltimore Sun, USA Today, like a lot of people on here. So that way you can get your foot in these places. And because you never know when that moment's going to hit where, the opportunity actually comes. But you got to be prepared when it happens. What is it? Opportunity means preparation equals success. If the job opens up, but you don't actually know your history, they're not going to give you the shot, and vice versa if you're not. So, and then kind of what Hannah was saying, become a multi-platform person. And if you're, if you're nervous to be a public speaker, like I used to be, if you're starting to feel that little nerves, that means you're probably on the right track. Just throw yourself and start doing it. Some people are more comfortable writing, and some people are probably vice versa. Maybe writing's not their strong suit, but force yourself to kind of do all the different platforms, social media. Don't be like, oh, I'm too good for social. No, you need to do it now. So learn to be on video. So yeah, I think that would be my multi-pronged advice.
Great.
Also,
Maya?
if you're still,
Go.
you go, you go.
You were in a flow. I don't want to interrupt the flow. Go.
Oh my goodness. I was just gonna say, if you're still a student, like definitely take as many classes on things that you don't think you're as interested in. Like HTML, like I was really happy that I took a class learning how to build a website that I didn't think I would have to do. And then when I had to build my own website, I was like, oh, I remember how to do that from college. And then I did the video journalism, broadcast journalism track. And that was amazing because I got to learn so many things. But the repetition of like being on camera for me was like monumental. So even when I look back at my early journalism videos, I'm like, oh, she was so awkward. And I remember at the time thinking like, oh, I look so confident. And that's one of those things that you just have to like keep putting in the repetition because you can always get better. And even to this day, I'm like analyzing my own videos and I'm asking my friends, like, how does this go? How does this resonate with you? Because I think it's also important to like build up with community. So I'm always trying to like help out my friends. And if they need someone who's going to video for them or photograph for them, I'll help them out. And then if I need someone from a different field, like I think that's one of my biggest pieces of advice is we all have our super talents and find your community around you who can help build you up and then you build them up as well.
And I would just say, and this is going to sound like you do have to become a Swiss Army knife. You just do. And that comes with pitching, video editing, being comfortable being on camera if needed. Video, I might have said video editing. I might have already said that, but I'm gonna say it twice because it is one of the most important skills that is prevalent with us having video forward everything. That's how so many people consume their news, their entertainment news, all types of news. So I would say, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. And it doesn't mean you have to do everything perfectly, but just being able to say, oh, if you need me to cut that video before 6 o'clock, I can get it done. That's important. And the other thing I would say is continue just asking why things resonate with audiences, especially online, and why those things matter and what it reflects about our world. I think just constantly questioning everything around us will make you a better journalist and it'll serve you in whatever avenue you decide to pursue. And yeah, it really takes you learning because one thing I will say about my path, even though it's been linear, I was able to learn all of these different skills in the different departments within ABC News. So just making sure that you're putting yourself out there to learn different skills and that's going to serve you no matter what you decide to do.
Yeah. I think you all brought up some good points. I think I'm kind of reverting back to my one-man band days because essentially that's what we've become, right? And now it's all on our phones. So just lean into the technology really and embrace it because that's kind of the future. It's here. You know what? We have a few minutes before we get into Q&A. just thought of, I wanted to ask about AI. I think that's just a big thing that we talk about all the time. I'm curious, are you using it in any way with work? Are you kind of steering away from it? What is your employer telling you about AI? I'm just kind of curious how that's changed your workflow. Maya?
Yeah, I'm slow. They are still figuring out how they want to incorporate it. Um, At this point, I cannot say that beyond transcription, I am using it day to day. We do have our own Disney beta chat GPT. I still don't really know what I can use it for and what I can't use it for. Um, I also am very slow to integrate it into the parts of my job that require me to be creative because I don't want that to become a crutch.
Mhm.
So it exists, and they're definitely still figuring out. But transcription, oh, I will throw that MP3, that WAV file in there so fast and get that transcript. Yes, I will. But other than that, they're still figuring it out.
Yeah, I think I agree with Maya in terms of I really, you know, morally against using it for anything like creative, like the meat and potatoes of what you're actually doing. It's the personality of you interviewing whoever or covering it. You're going to review a play, don't write it with AI. That's awful. Um, but I think where AI can come in, I've been starting to dabble a little. I need to do more, but is maybe streamlining the process. Yes, audio transcription, like you said, even though they get that wrong a lot of times. But maybe helping with workflow type stuff. Like, there's something called Opus Clips. I haven't paid the subscription for it yet, but my buddy uses it, and you can do your whole interview, and you can throw it into this basically an AI thing, and it will try to identify what the coolest, I don't know, 5 clips of your interview are. And then you can then upload them to YouTube. Now, again, I'm like too much of a perfectionist and like, oh, well, what if they don't pick the best clips? I haven't taken the leap yet. But I think that kind of thing would be where it would help with like workflow type stuff. Or maybe if you need to like crunch numbers or you know what I mean, like throw that into Chat GPT. But a warning. Like the other day, Grok was just trying to tell me that a shot was not The Godfather 2, and it was. And I was going back and forth for a few minutes, and I was like, what am I doing? Gotta go feed my dog. But anyway, so kids out there, just because you type it in, what is this? There, it's not always right. So the they gotta catch up to us humans, us mortals.
I've also
Oh, you
argued
go.
with ChatGPT. I think +1 to using it as a transcription service, but
Yeah.
I've tried to use it as a research tool a lot of the time. Like recently, when the full list of Grammy nominations, and there are like literally hundreds of full nominees, and I tried to dump it into ChatGPT and say, who here is from a town in Montgomery County, Maryland, to sort of
Right.
try to streamline that process. And it continuously gave me incorrect answers. I was sort of testing it because I knew there's an artist, a country singer named Maggie Rose, who's from Potomac.
Oh yeah.
And I knew she was a nominee, and I was like, all right, let's see, and there's plenty of stuff out there that says she's from Potomac. And time and again, it would say, oh, there are no artists from Maryland at all. I'm like, well, that's definitely not right, because we've got Turnstile and all these categories. So I have yet to find an instance where it has helped me find information for stories quicker than I'm able to find it myself. But I would love to be proven wrong on that. But yeah, I would say for the most part, I am a hater of using AI.
I'm glad you double checked though. That's the Philip Merrill College of
Yep.
Journalism way.
Yep.
Everybody,
Right.
you cross reference it. And ChatGPT it ain't LexisNexis.
The only thing I use it for is kind of like what Maya was saying. If I'm uploading on CapCut and I need my captions for Instagram and whatever, like I use that all the time, and that has like changed my life basically. But I won't use it for editing or for coming up with phrases. And I've actually gotten into like some pretty hearty debates with my friends about this, because they're like, you're a one-woman show. You should be taking advantage of AI and asking it for YouTube, like what you should title your YouTube videos, and you should ask it like for your pitches and stuff. And I feel morally against it.
Yeah.
It feels like all the training, like that is the journalism school that we went to, was to learn how to do these things. And I also would maybe love to be proven wrong. Like if it does actually help me out to be able to do other things, that would be great. But I just don't feel comfortable right now to ask it to do anything other than like the captions. And then I'm still going through and editing the captions myself, because a lot of times they get words wrong. But yeah, I feel like it's a really slippery slope, and I don't want anything that's a creative element to be taken away. Anything that could be like helpful, like video editing, that could be amazing down the line, just so I can, because that's very hard to edit so much on your own. But I still don't feel comfortable with it.
Because you're taking jobs away from people that, like, we all went to school, that you learn the art of writing a good headline. You don't want to take that away, you know. Now, yeah, so but maybe for your analogy, maybe help with SEO or something like hashtag, something like that. But in terms of like actual creativity, like I think that should be an actual living, breathing person.
Amazing. All right. I'm keeping close tabs on the time. It's 8:10, so we'll take some Q&A in our chat. So I'm kind of sifting through everything here, and I think let's see, there's one that kind of stands out. This is from Jeff's. I'm a photojournalist and I've always wanted to be a photographer on a red carpet, not like paparazzi, but for a legitimate news outlet. I also would love to do studio photos for magazines or other news outlets. Do any of you have any insights on how photographers navigate the confluence of entertainment and journalism?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of that. So great question. At least for Broadway on red carpets, it has been like you have to have a really good resume of like a portfolio basically, and you reach out to outlets to try to like freelance for them. I think that's probably like the best outlet. I decided that I wanted to kind of go on my own, so I showed them all the work that I was doing and the numbers, and then I was allowed on the red carpet like on my own terms. But it's like it can be really competitive, especially like once you get to the like the big ones that I don't do as much of, like the TV side, especially like in LA. Like I feel like that's a whole different side. But being a photojournalist is very rewarding and not always seen as rewarding. So sometimes you have to like go get your own content, and then companies will reach out to you that they want it. Like I've had ABC News reach out to me for a video that I filmed of a opening night curtain call, and they were doing a segment on it, and so they paid me for my video.
It was probably me. It was probably me reaching out to you. I used to do that. I was the annoying person in everyone's comments asking if we can gain permission or pay you for the videos.
See, and it's so funny because I'm seeing your name and I'm like, I feel like I know you, and it's very possible. And like, I want to get more of those type of emails. You know, like I want people to see my videos and be like, yes, I would like that. And same with photos. It's not necessarily like the best if you want to make this like a consistent thing. So that's maybe not the best advice for people. But like for me, I'm finding that like getting the content that I want to get anyway, and then putting it out there and hoping that the right platforms see it is like one avenue. But also like just making a portfolio will be essential, whether that portfolio is like on your Instagram or on your Flickr account. You want to show your range of photos of like a tight shot and a wide shot and like events and different things like that, so that you can prove to people that you can get all different types of photos, especially when it's like, because a red carpet can be chaotic and you have to like lock in. And I love that energy. I like thrive off of it, but you have to, it's like intense.
I think also to that point, like photojournalism is one of the things that you obviously have to be in person to do. Like I can recap the Oscars from my couch in DC, but what I've found is that, you know, being in DC, I could pitch news outlets and say, hey, there's this red carpet here for, you know, White House Correspondents' Dinner, Kennedy Center Honors, you know, whatever it may be.
Rest in peace.
And yes, we probably cross paths at some point there.
Probably.
But, you know, I'm here. You don't have to pay a reporter to, you know, take a train or a plane to get here. Can I, you know, go ahead and get video or get photos for you? So I think that can be a great avenue for freelancing, where you can, you know, make yourself known. Again, I don't know if you're here or somewhere else, but make yourself known for where you are. so that when editors need that, they can come to you for that.
Perfect. Another question. This is from the one and only Sue Katzeff. She writes, "What is the one thing you learned, experience at Merrill that has helped you along the way?" Hi, Sue. Jason?
Oh, hi. Thanks for the question. Well, I kind of mentioned one that, in those early, gauntlet boot camp classes of just where if you made one typo that, it was an F. And I thought that is definitely something I've carried with me is you always, fact check. And then that actually continued. The guy that hired me at WTOP, the late great legend Jim Farley, who is like a radio legend. He just passed away, but he would always say, "Get it right, then get it first." And so that kind of dovetailed into the Philip Merrill thing, where hey, if you get a typo, it's not good to post it first if it's full of factual errors or typos. So that's definitely one thing I carried from like a journalistic logistical, and then just in general, just being exposed to different people, honestly, just different cultures. I remember Alice Bonner taught, I don't know if she's still there, taught like a race in the media class, and you're just learning just diverse backgrounds of in different films directed by Spike Lee and John Singleton. I don't know, just learning that there's a whole other world out there. I'm a guy from the cornfields of Frederick County, Maryland, and drop down into College Park and just see there's a big world out there and a lot of different. So I would just lessons like that from UMD as well, in addition to the don't make a typo.
I think also with entertainment coverage, I've been surprised at how much I've leaned back on the crime reporting, these sort of basic legal things that we had to learn. And in the back of my mind at the time, I was like, I want to write about movies. Why do I need this? And it turns out I really needed it. So I think that's having to go to a court and have to figure out how to cover a story, or go to a town hall, or call the police PIO and get to the bottom of what was going on. That is something that I have used constantly in covering entertainment stuff, and we don't have time to get into the Taylor Frankie Paul Bachelorette situation, but that is something where like you need that sort of background to be able to cover a story like that accurately and in a way that is helpful and interesting to people. So I'm grateful for Merrill for that. And hi, Sue.
Maya?
I would say, again, I came under the camp of Bethany Swain, and she was a stickler for us focusing on character-driven stories. Like, yes, you have a story you want to tell, but who is going to be the person to tell it? Like, that being so important. And it's something that I still carry with me. I had a piece that aired yesterday about a young lady named Audie Crooks, who plays for Iowa State. And not only was her story captivating, but whenever I would see edits of her talking on TikTok, I would be captivated. She just had this aura around her, and her story, she dealt with some adversity and didn't start playing until eighth grade. So once I got into the specifics of her story, it was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. And she sings. So she sang for us. So I think that just focusing on who is the character and what are they going to bring to the story, I think is still something that I carry. I don't think, I know it's something I still carry with me now.
Shoshana?
Totally. I also see someone commenting on the ethics, and like I take that very seriously as a journalist. And I think that's like my number one rule, especially as I'm getting to know a lot of these actors personally. And people will sometimes message me and be like, hey, do you actually mind not posting this? And it's like, sure, like I feel comfortable not sharing certain things if someone has like asked me for a good reason not to. I know that sometimes can be conflicting for like journalism reasons if it's like if the story needs to get out there. But for a lot of times it's like someone just didn't hit a note and it was at Broadway and Bryant Park, like not breaking news, right? They just like didn't like how they sounded and they would prefer for their legacy to be better without that. To me, like that feels like like to remember that you're human and that they're human has been a really important factor for me. Is that like a lot of times people can think celebrities are like this different level. It's like at the end of the day, they are like people, and we want to make sure we treat them as such. But also there was for my photojournalism class, so speaking back to our photojournalist friend over there, I remember John Sham taught us like doesn't matter if you are the best photographer in the world, if you don't have a camera when breaking news strikes, then like you didn't get the shot. And so when I was like starting out, before we had our smartphones that we would carry everywhere, I would walk around with my like giant Nikon or Canon because I was so afraid that like what if I was at a breaking news event and I didn't have my camera. And now I have my phone, and I always try to make sure that I have enough battery power on it and storage space. But I think like even something that basic of like make sure that you have your ducks in a row and that you're ready if breaking news strikes, because like a photojournalist or a journalist in any situation, if you are witnessing breaking news, if you're witnessing an event, like you are a firsthand person, you should be able to capture that. And those were some of the skills that I learned at Maryland that I have like 100% noticed time and time again, that people are like, oh, you're so ready when breaking news strikes. It's like, isn't that what we're supposed to do? So yay, Maryland.
Yay. Let's see. Let's get in one more question. I think we have time for that. This is from Eugene. He says, he asks, will the influencer culture reach a saturation point? Has it already reached a saturation point? Do you want to jump in on that?
I actually have been seeing that it's maybe going the opposite direction now. Like I think like the pure influencer who's maybe not niching out to other things, but are just like the lifestyle influencers, people are less interested because of maybe what's happening in the world, that they want to feel like connected with the people that they are following. But I have noticed that there's a lot of people, at least in the Broadway space, trying to be like theater influencers. So that's still definitely happening a lot. And I think it's really smart that a lot of Maryland or a lot of Broadway companies are inviting influencers and hosting really cool events to try to get content to get people interested in the shows. But I think that they live in different spaces. So I think maybe it's not like the demise of it, but a change in what they're able to do, their access, and what we should be looking at them for.
I think on a local perspective, when I go to a restaurant opening or a musical opening, I am one of a handful of reporters and everybody else is an influencer. So it's something that I think is here to stay. But I think, as we've talked about, I think they will just blend more and more. Like if you look at the new Washington Post food critic, not only is he not anonymous, but he is very active on social media. His personality and brand is part of what he brings to the table. And so I think we're just going to see more and more of that, where it's personality driven journalism that is what people are interested in.
Yeah, be such a good, lively journalist that you become an influencer, not the other way around.
Okay. Let's see. Do we have time for one more? What's your biggest prediction for how the industry will change in the next 5 years? This is from Kate.
I feel like I'm still catching up right now. I'm not prepared for what's next.
Yeah, there's been so much change even in the almost 10 years that I've been at ABC, and everything keeps changing. So more change. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say, but I will say it seems like people being on their phones for their primary source of everything is not going to stop. So you kind of have to fish where the fish are.
And then who knows? Because I would have, like you were saying, I would have always thought, you're always taught film, 16:9, horizontal, Lawrence of Arabia, and then it's like, nope, now we're vertical. And so maybe it'll be cyclical. Maybe the next whatever that we can't even imagine, holograms. Maybe we'll be back to shooting sideways. Who knows? Who knows? It's really hard to guess what 5 years will be, but I think it's a safe bet. Like Maya's saying, that mobile culture is sort of where it's going to be, or if it's still maybe a TV, but it'll be apps. It's all apps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think a lot of social media and individual personalities taking over. I think so. And honestly, from this last minute question I see from Peyton, who's a student at Maryland right now, I'm thinking that like, I remember the way I got my internship my freshman year was like this story that we would talk about a lot. And I think that it goes into my career right now, which is like, there were people all around and everyone was trying to like prove like they were the person that you wanted to hire. But WTOP, our trusty place that I went to, they were leaving, and Olive Reed was like, "Show, you are going to want to talk to WTOP. I think that this would be perfect for you." And I just remember they were like literally heading out the door. And so I like ran after them, handed them my paper, and like pitched them with passion of like, this is why I would be perfect for it. This is why I want to do it. And I got the internship like on the spot. And so I think that it's an important thing for thinking about your journalism career, really any career, is like be passionate and be able to explain to people why you think that you are the best person for this job, and explain actual reasons of like, you know, get better at pitching yourself. It's really awkward. Like I sometimes, even to this day, I'm like, oh, so I'm I love Broadway. I'm also a content creator and a journalist, but like I've been working on being more confident in that. And I think being able to have like your elevator pitch of what makes you unique will honestly, not only in this specific as a student getting an internship or a job world, but honestly, as Broadway and as journalism is taking all these different fields, and we're not sure how many like big stations are going to happen. And, you know, people are going to their social media and Instagram and TikTok for their news. Like people are going to want to trust individual people with passion and with, you know, people who know what they're talking about. So the more that you can prove that you have a niche that you are specifically talking about, I think can help you out.
When it comes to building out that niche, I think there are a lot of things you can do while you're still in school to do that. Like campus publications are obviously a great one. I don't know if this is still the case. When I was there, you had to have a concentration in something else. So I did film. Jason, I think you said you also did some film stuff. And that was really helpful in like having a background on movies that came out before I was born and all that stuff. And then also like internships wise, like intern at news outlets, that's great, but you also have time. And what I found was really helpful is doing like I got some great knowledge from doing PR internships as well. I interned for the Motion Picture Association in DC, and that also gave me a really helpful understanding of how that side of the industry worked, so that when I got to my, you know, my entertainment reporting internship, I had background knowledge on how the industry worked. But I would say in general, just like write as much as you can. If you're video focused, make as many videos as you can. Like get in your reps now, so that, you know, when the internships come, when the job applications come, you can say, look, I already did this and I'm more than capable of doing it, you know, at the next level.
And just very quickly, I would also say, you know, to Shoshana's point, like pitch yourself as if it's the best story you'll ever produce. Like you have all the facts, you know yourself inside and out. Like pitch it like there's no tomorrow, and you just can't go wrong when you bet on yourself.
Well said. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you all. This was a really wonderful conversation. I love learning a little from all of you. Thank you for letting me be a part of this panel, guys.
Thank you.
Guys, this
Thank
has been
you.
absolutely wonderful. And just to wrap things up very quickly, since you know, this has been such a wonderful discussion, folks. A huge thanks to all of you for taking part in this. You know, Kathy, Maya, Shoshana, Hannah, and Jason, really appreciate you guys' time and insight. I hope you all learned a lot from this, and do follow the Jan on Instagram, Jan at UMD, both on Facebook and Instagram, the gram, you know, of course, as the kids say. And be on the lookout for all of the developments that we have for the Jan, because we are really building up a lot of great stuff happening here. A few of us will be around for the Hall of Fame ceremony next week on Tuesday. So definitely check that out. And again, keep up with us with everything that we are doing. So again, on behalf of Jan, just want to thank all of you. Thank you all, everybody, for taking part, listening in this call. This will be on the Merrill College YouTube page, youtube.com/Merrill College UMD. So check that out. So until next time, thank you all very much and good night. Have a great evening.